I built this AI designer app using just Lovable N8N. All the user needs to do is choose whether they want to generate a brand new image or edit an already existing one. Then he simply has to type a prompt describing exactly what they want to create. Immediately, this backend automation in N8N gets triggered, which automatically goes and implements all the requested changes, making this app powerful enough to replace a $40,000 per year employee. And in this video I will show you exactly how you can build this app, step by step, and at the end I will also show you how you can sell it to marketing agencies for thousands of dollars each. So if that sounds interesting, let's get started. Alright, now the first thing that we have to do is to build the front-end interface of our app, and we're going to do that by using Lovable. Specifically, I will come over here in Lovable's text box and type, I want to build an AI designer app. What the user should be able to do is select whether he wants to generate a brand new image or edit an already existing one. Now, if he wants to edit a brand new image, then give him the option to type in a prompt in a simple text box and select the aspect ratio of that image. Now, if he chooses that he wants to edit an already existing image, then give him the option to upload that image in the interface. He should be able to upload up to 10 images if he actually wants to. Then also give him a box where he can type his prompt for exactly what edits he wants to make. And also an aspect ratio option where you can select the aspect ratio of that image. And then the app is going to go do all of these things in the backend, which I'm going to build with N8N. You just focus on building a nice looking front-end UI. It needs to look modern with nice sharp colors, just like this example. And now what I'm going to do is I will go over to Google and search for a nice looking UI, simply find one that I like. Let's say I really like this one, for example, and then all I have to do is simply come over here and download it, and come back over to Lovable, click on attach file, upload that design, and then I will come over here and click on enter. This way Lovable has a visual example of exactly how we want the app to look like, making it way more likely to give us a good end result. But while Lovable is building the front-end interface of our app, let's go over to N8N and start building the backend. Alright, so I went over to N8N and created a brand new workflow, and now it's time to add in a first step, which is going to be none other than a webhook. And the reason we're using a webhook is because a webhook allows us to connect the front-end interface that we're currently building with Lovable to the backend automation that we're going to build over in N8N. And the only change we need to make in these settings is we need to come over here and change the HTTP method from get over to post, since that is the type of request we're going to be sending over to Lovable in order for us to be able to send and receive data. So now all you have to do is to simply come over here and click on top of this URL in order for you to copy it in your clipboard. And then we can come back over to Lovable, where as you can see, it just finished building the front-end interface for our app. And I do gotta admit, it does look very good. And that is because we gave it the visual example in our prompt, so it knew exactly what we were going for. But remember, we're not here to take a look at the interface. We're actually here to connect this front-end interface with a backend that we're building in N8N. So to do that, I will simply come over here and I will say, connect this web URL to this front-end interface, and every time I fill in information, simply send it over to that webhook. And now what I will do is I will simply come over here and paste in the webhook URL I just copied. And then I will simply come over here and click on enter. And boom, Lovable just finished making the changes, which means if we come over here and we, for example, describe an image that we want to generate, and we click on generate image, it's going to send all this information back in our N8N interface. So let's actually do that to test it out. Let's say I want to create a futuristic city with flying cars. All I would have to do is simply come over here and type, create a futuristic city with flying cars. Then I will simply have to come over here and select the aspect ratio that I want my image to have. Let's say I want it to be 1:1. And then I simply need to come back over in my N8N interface and make sure my webhook is listening and expecting to receive data. And then I can come back over to Lovable and click on generate image. And boom, as you can see, the image generation request was successful. And if I go back over to N8N, we can see that we do have an output in our webhook, which means that we successfully managed to connect a front-end interface that we built with Lovable to the backend automation that we're now going to build in N8N. And specifically, if I scroll all the way down here, we can see the mode that we selected, which is to generate an image. We can see our prompt, our aspect ratio, which is basically all the data that we need to go and generate that image and then send it back in our Lovable interface. So let me actually come over here and pin this data so I do not have to rerun this. And now it's time to go and build the first branch of our automation, which is going to be the generate section. Because remember, in our Lovable interface, we have two sections. We have the generate new image section, and we have the edit and already existing image section. But first, let's go and build the generate new image, and then we're going to build the edit section as well. So to do that, we have to come back over in our N8N interface. And the first thing that we need to do is to filter for the option that we selected in our Lovable interface. And we're going to do that by using the if node, because what we're going to do is we're going to scroll all the way down here to the webhook to where we have the mode that we selected. And we're going to say if this schema that includes the mode is equal to, and we will type in generate exactly as it is typed over here. Then if we execute the step, this is going to be true, which means that we selected that we want to generate an image and not edit an image. So then the automation will be able to move on with this branch and actually go and generate that image for us. So that is exactly the branch that we're going to build right now. So to go and generate this image, what we have to do is come over here and search for an HTTP request. And that is because in order for us to be able to create this image, we're going to need to hit a third-party API. Specifically for this video, we're going to use Nano Banana, since in my opinion, it is the best image generation model on the market right now. Now to access Nano Banana, we have to go over to key.ai, which is a third-party API marketplace where you can basically access a lot of different APIs from one simple interface. And then what you have to do is to make sure you actually come over here and sign up for an account. And once you do, you simply have to come over here to the top right, click on your profile, and once you do, simply come over here and click on Explore AI API. And this is going to bring you inside Key AI's interface. Now the first thing that you have to do is to actually come over here to where it says billing and actually buy some credits, since these are third-party APIs, guys, so obviously they do cost money, so you will need to buy some credits. But just so you get a rough estimate, you can buy 1000 credits for only $5, and to generate one image with Nano Banana, it only costs around 0.2 cents. Even if you buy the lowest amount, which is $5, you will be able to generate a pretty decent amount of images. So make sure you first come over here and buy some credits, and then what you have to do is to come over here and click on Models Market, which is going to take you over in this interface. And then since we want a text to image model, I will simply come over here, select that, and then I will come over here and select Nano Banana Gemini 2.5 Flash. And this is going to bring us inside Nano Banana section. Now, as you can see, here we have the playground, where you can play around with Nano Banana if you want from this interface, but we're not trying to do that because we're trying to use their API. So make sure you come over here and you navigate over to the API section. And I know this API section might seem intimidating, guys, but this is actually super simple to navigate, because all you have to do is to simply scroll all the way down here to where you see this request example, and as you can see right now, the CURL option is selected, which allows us to simply come over here and copy all the snippet of code, then come back over to N8N, click on import CURL, simply paste in the snippet of code we just copied, and click on import. And what this does is it basically populates almost all the settings for us automatically, so we don't have to do a lot of the work ourselves. Now we still do need to change some things, and the first thing that we need to change is over here in the header parameters. We need to come and input our own unique API key. Now to find your API key, simply navigate over back to Key AI's dashboard and then come over here and select API keys, which is going to bring you over in this interface over here. And all you have to do is to simply come over here, click on create API key, then simply give it a name. I will name it API. And then simply come over here, click on create, and boom, this is your brand new API key. So all you have to do is simply come over here and copy it, and then you can come back over to N8N, simply delete this part over here in the value and paste it in over here. But what I would actually advise you to do is to save it inside N8N, so you don't have to constantly go and look it up. So if you want to do that, you can simply come over here to authentication, select generic credential type, then come over here and select header auth, and then all of these options are going to pop up. Now what I want you to do is to simply come over here, click on create new credential. For the name, make sure you type authorization exactly as I have typed it over here, including the capital A, because if you don't do that, this is not going to work. And then for the value, let me turn this into an expression so you guys can actually look at it. Type in better space and then paste in your API key. So it should be better with a capital B, then space, and then you paste in your API key. Then you can also come over here and name this. I will name it Key AI, and then you can come over here and click on save. And boom, as you can see, your credentials were successfully created, which means that you right now have saved this API key and you don't constantly have to come over here and input it every time, which means that you don't actually need the header parameters and you can simply delete them. And now it's time for the part that everyone loses their mind, which is the JSON. So let me actually open this up so you guys can take a better look at it, and we can see a bunch of code over here which might seem intimidating to a beginner. But don't worry guys, this is actually super simple. As you can see, we have a bunch of parameters over here and also the values next to them. The only two parameters that we need to change is first of all the prompt, which is basically the prompt that we typed in our Lovable interface. And as you can see, inside these two quotes, there is a fake dummy prompt. What we need to do is to simply delete this and then scroll all the way down here to where we have the prompt inside our webhook and simply take the schema and drag and drop it over here inside these two quotes. And then the only other change that we need to make is to change the image size. As you can see, we have an aspect ratio selected over here, but what we need to do is to give it access to the aspect ratio that we selected in our Lovable interface. So to do that, we simply take in the aspect ratio schema and drag and drop it over here. And boom, that was literally it. We configured the super complex code that everyone starts losing their mind about. And now we can simply come over here and close this off, and we can finally come over here and execute the step. And boom, as you can see, we successfully send a request over to KAI in order for it to start generating this image with Nano Banana. So what I will actually do is I will come over here and pin this data, because this actually does cost money guys, and we don't want to have to rerun this if we're not trying to create a brand new image. And then what we need to do is to simply wait for that image to be generated. Usually around 20 to 30 seconds is more than enough time for an image to be generated. I will actually leave this on 20, and then after the image is generated, what we need to do is to get it back in our N8N interface. So to do that, we have to come over here and search for another HTTP request, and then navigate back over in the Nano Banana docs, simply scroll all the way up to the top, and over here where it says API endpoints, make sure you change it from create a task to query a task, because that's what we actually want to do. We want to get the task back in our N8N interface. And as you can see, the first thing that we have over here is a CURL, which right now is our best friend. So all we have to do is simply come over here and copy it, and then we can come back over to N8N, click on import CURL, simply paste in that snippet of code we just copied and click on import, and this will populate the vast majority of the settings for us automatically. And now that I also executed the wait node and we have access to all of this data, we simply need to make some very simple configurations. Now the first thing that we need to change is we need to come over here in the task ID and input our own unique task ID, which we can find over here in our HTTP request where we have the task ID schema. So simply take it and drag and drop it over here. And then we also need to authenticate ourselves, but if you remember, we have already saved our API key. So simply come over here, select generic credential type, then come over here and select header auth, and then simply come over here and select our key AI credentials. And we can actually delete the section because we don't actually need it. So now if I come and execute the step, you can see that our task finished generating because it says success over here, and we also have the URL of the generated image in the result JSON section. But there is a possibility that the image wasn't done yet being generated. So to also take that into account, what we need to do is to come over here and add in another if node, and this time we will take in the state over here, drag and drop it, and we will say if this equals to success, exactly as it is typed over here, and we execute the step, then this is going to be true, which means that our image was done generating and we can move on with the rest of our automation. But if this is false, it means that our image is still yet being generated. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this branch and bring it all the way back over here in the wait node, because what this is going to do is basically create a loop, and it's going to wait again for 20 seconds and then recheck again if our image is done generating, and then it will come back over in the if node and see, is it done generating? If yes, move on with the rest of the automation. If not, again, go and wait for 20 seconds and check again. And this is going to happen all the way up until our image is done generating. And now guys, as you can see, it is a different day because I'm wearing a different shirt, but it's time to actually go and finish the video. So now what we have to do is to extract this link URL that we have inside here in our HTTP request, because as you can see, it is inside the schema that is called result.json, but it also has a bunch of other things rather than the URL that we actually need. So to circumvent that, what we have to do is to come over here and add in an edit fields node, because what we're going to do is we will simply come over here and let's name this new parameter, for example link, and then you need to come over here into the value, turn this into an expression and type in this snippet of code, which as you can see basically extracts only the image URL that is inside the schema. Now you don't actually have to understand how this actually is written, you can simply screenshot this, give it over to ChatGPT, and it's going to give you the text. And now if I actually execute this, you can see that we have the URL of that image. So now we can do a bunch of things with it. Now for example, we could upload this to Google Drive, which to do so we would have to come over here, use an HTTP request, inside the URL simply taking the schema that includes the URL and drag and drop it over here and change nothing, because if we do that, this is basically going to download the image we just generated, which we can also view over here. As you can see, it is a futuristic city and it honestly looks very nice. And then what we could do is simply come over here, search for Google Drive and select upload a file. Then simply come over here, select our Google Drive credentials, operation, make sure this is on upload, input data field name, this needs to match the exact name that we have over here as a binary file, which is data. And then for the file name, what we could do is simply come over here and give it the prompt that we used to generate this image. And then we could come over here and execute the step, which is going to upload this image over in our Google Drive. But again, this is an optional step. I would personally advise you to simply return this image back in your Lovable interface, which you can do by coming over here, change it for a respond to webhook node, change the respond parameter to JSON, and then simply come over here. You can name the schema something like link, and then over here in the value, we basically have to delete this fake dummy value that exists over here, and then come over here and basically drag and drop in our image URL. So now if I execute the step, this is going to send this back in our Lovable interface. But remember, in order for this to actually work, we have to come back over here in our webhook, simply open it up and change the respond parameter from immediately to using a respond to webhook node. Because if we do not actually change this, this will execute, but it will not be able to send the parameter back into Lovable. So now that we made this change, we also need to come back over to Lovable and tell it to expect to receive data. So to do that, I will simply come over here and say, hey, make sure you expect to receive an image back, and you create a section where you can display it. And then we'll simply come over here and click on enter. And boom, Lovable just finished making the changes. So now if I come back over to N8N and I execute the respond to webhook node one more time, and boom guys, if I come back over in my Lovable interface and I scroll down here, we can see the image that was generated from our app being displayed over here, which is exactly what we wanted. Now we can obviously improve the way this looks. We can also make it have a download button over here so the user can actually download it and use it whatever he wants, but I think you get the point. But now what we have to do is to also edit an existing image section that we have in our Lovable interface. As you can see over here, we have the option to upload up to 10 images and basically merge them together and do whatever edits we want to them. Now we can obviously upload only one if we want and simply edit that one, but just so I can show you how we can build a function of multiple images, I will actually come over here and upload 2 images. I will first of all come over here and upload the image we just generated, and I also found this image of a river on Google, so I will simply download it, and I will also upload the other one. And in the describe your edit section, I will say something like, make the river flow through inside the city. And then I will come over here, select the aspect ratio that I want. Let's say we want 16:9 this time. And then we again have to come back over in our Lovable interface and make sure our webhook is listening and is expecting to receive data. And then we can come over here, click on apply edits. And now if we come back over in our Lovable interface, we can see that we do have an output over here, which includes both of the images that we just uploaded. But as you can see, they are basically in text format and they're not in a visual way that we can actually take a look at these images. Now we could take this text and actually transform it into an image inside N8N, but just to make our life easier, I will come back over to Lovable and say, make sure you send all the images as binary files with names data1, data2, data3, etc. And I will simply come over here and send over this request. So now every time we upload images and we click on apply edits, Lovable is going to send them as binary files and not in text format. And boom, Lovable just finished making a change, which means that I can come back over here and click on apply edits. And then if I come back over to N8N, we can see that this time we have both of the images that we just uploaded, but as binary files, as you can see over here. And we can actually click on view and actually take a look at them, since they are in a PNG format. So now that we have this data inside N8N, what we then have to do is to then execute the if node over here to see whether he wants to generate a new image or whether he wants to edit some images. And as you can see, this is false since we chose that we want to edit images. So now what we need to do is to upload all these images in the web, so then we can send them over to Nano Banana so you can finally access them and make all the necessary edits. So to do that, we have to come over here and search for an HTTP request, because how we're gonna be able to upload these images over to the web is by using a third-party API, which is called IMGBB, and I will leave a link for it in the description below. Now do not worry, this is completely free to use, so simply go over to imgbb.com and create a free account, and then navigate over to their docs, where you will have to simply scroll down here to where you see the C URL, then simply come over here and copy all of it, and come back over to N8N, click on import URL, simply paste in the snippet of code just copied and click on import. And what this is going to do is basically populate the vast majority of the settings for us automatically. Now we still do need to change some things, and the first thing that we need to do is to authenticate ourselves by inputting our API key over here. Now to find our API key, what we have to do is scroll all the way over here to the top to where you can see our API key. So simply copy it, and then you need to come back over to N8N, simply delete this value over here and paste in your API key. And now the next thing that we need to do is to come over here in the send body parameters and change the body content type to be from data, since we're going to upload an image from our data. And then over here in the parameter type, we need to change this to N8N binary file, since we have a binary file over here, and then we simply need to give it a name. And then what we need to do is to come over here in the name and type in image, exactly as I have typed it over here. In the input data field name, simply take the first binary file that we have over here, which is called data1, simply copy that name and paste it over here. Which means that if we execute this step right now, this is going to successfully upload this image over to IMGBB. And we can see it from this URL over here, because if I copy this and I paste it over to Google, we can see the exact image that we just uploaded over to IMGBB. But remember, right now we only uploaded the first image, and we need to do the exact same thing for the second one. So what we basically have to do is to simply come over here, copy this node, paste it over here, and then come over here and connect it with the if node, and then come over here and change the name of the input data field name from data1 to data2. And if we execute this as well, this is going to upload the image over to IMGBB. Now you might say, Damian, sure, we do have only 2 images right now, but our interface allows us to upload over 10 images. So how can we actually do that? Well guys, to do that, we'll basically have to paste in the same node 10 times, open it up, and come over here and change the last number of the input data field name. So this is going to be 3, then the next one that we're going to do is going to be 4, 5, etc. But we still do have a problem, because we might only have 2 images, and if we only have 2, then this node will basically have nothing to upload and it's going to error, which means that our workflow is going to stop working. So to circumvent that, what we have to do is to open this up, navigate over to the settings, turn on the always output data option, and then on error, simply click on continue, because what this is going to do is, if this is unable to run and actually errors, which sometimes it will, since we will not have as many images to upload, then our workflow is going to keep going normally and it's not going to stop, which is exactly what we wanted. Which means that we have to do the same exact thing with the second node over here as well. We have to come over here and open always output data, and then come over here and select continue. And we basically have to do the exact same thing for all the other 7 HTTP requests we're going to do over here. So I'll simply come, copy this node, do basically the same exact thing for all the other HTTP requests, just changing the number in the input data field name. And boom, I basically did that for all 10 of the HTTP requests. And as you can see, all of them are enabled to continue even if they error, which means that our workflow is not going to break. And now what we need to do is to basically merge all of these things together by coming over here and searching for a merge node. So simply come over here, select that one, and then we will select 10 over here, and we basically will connect each one of those to this merge node over here. Alright, so now that I did that, let me execute the merge node over here, and you guys will see that these two work perfectly fine, and they all output the data. But as you can see, if I actually open this up, this didn't actually do anything. This basically just outputted something so the workflow doesn't crash. And the same with this node as well, and all the other nodes underneath it. So now that we have merged all this data, we have 10 different items. So what we have to do is to simply come over here, aggregate those, simply because we don't want to have 10 different items, which will mean that we will do 10 different runs. We only want to have one, so we only do one run with nanobanana. So to change that, simply come over here, select all item data into a single list, and then simply click on execute. And boom, what this is going to do is basically will input all of the different items into one big array, as you can see over here, and we only have one item. Which means that we're almost ready to go over to nanobanana and make the request to merge all of these images together based on the prompt that we wrote in our Lovable interface. But we still do need to make one more change, so let's go and do that. And again, we will have to go over to Nano Banana's docs, but this time we will not going to select Nano Banana over here in the model type. We will come over here and switch over to the Nano Banana edit, and then we simply need to come over here in the API section and scroll all the way down here till we find our best friend, which is the CURL. So simply copy this, then come back over to N8N, click on import CURL, simply paste in the snippet of code we just copied and click on import, which again populates the vast majority of the settings for us automatically. Now we still do need to make some configurations, and the first thing that we have to do is to authenticate ourselves over here. But if you remember, we have saved our authentication inside N8N, so come over here and select generic credential type. Then we can come over here, select header auth, and then we can come over here and select our key AI credentials, which means that we don't actually need the send header parameters and we can actually delete them. And then it's time for the part where everyone starts losing their mind because they see this block of code. Now, do not worry, guys. This is actually super simple to navigate. All we have to do is to simply come over here and change very few things. And the first thing that we need to change is obviously the prompt over here. So make sure you come and you delete this fake dummy prompt that we have over here, and then close the aggregate node, open up the webhook where we have our initial prompt message, and then simply take it and drag and drop it over here. So now Nano Banana has access to the exact prompt that we typed in our Lovable interface. And then the other thing that we need to change, we need to input all the image URLs that we want to edit or even merge together. Now, if you remember, we have all of these URLs inside our aggregate node over here. But as you can see, they are separated, which means that we cannot actually take them and drag and drop them over here, since sometimes we might have 2 images, sometimes we might have 3, sometimes we might have 4, etc. Which means that if we actually drag and drop all 10 of them, sometimes we're not gonna have 10 images uploaded, and this JSON is going to break simply because we will not have one or multiple of these URLs. So to circumvent that, what we have to do is to simply close this off and add in another step in between these two nodes, which is going to be a simple OpenAI model. And then I will come over here and select message model, because what we're going to do is first of all select our OpenAI credentials, and then for the model you can select any model you want. I will personally choose to go for GPT-4, and then we need to come over here in the prompt and basically tell this LLM model to take in all this data that we have inside the aggregate node and give us only a list with the URLs that we have inside the aggregate node. So to do that, I will come over here and type take these links, and now what I will do is I will take in the array of the full aggregate node, drag and drop it over here, but as you can see, this only shows us an object since all of this info is inside an object, which means we have to copy this, open up the AI assistant over here, tell it to simply stringify this, and then paste in that JSON schema, which then the AI assistant is going to give us this snippet of code, which we can then just copy, come over here, open this up, and simply delete this and paste it in over here. And as you can see, now the LM model can actually access all the content that is inside this object inside the aggregate node. And that is because we basically told it to stringify it. Now don't ask me why that is, that's how N8N works. So if something is inside an object, you have to stringify it in order for N8N to be able to read it. Then assay and put them inside a valid JSON. This should be valid JSON for this because I want to put them inside the image URL section. And I basically copied the full JSON that I had inside my HTTP request and paste it over here. Which means that if we right now come and execute the step, and boom, as you can see, that is exactly what I did over here. Now did came over here in the prompt and added in some more things. I basically gave it an example and I told it to give me only the links and nothing else. You can pause the video and read this if you actually want, but as you can see, it actually did the job very well. Which means that we can now come over here in our HTTP request, simply open it up, scroll all the way down to our body parameters, open this up, and then inside the image URLs, simply delete this fake image URL, and then taking that schema that includes all our image URLs and drag and drop it over here. And now Nano Banana has access to these image URLs as well. And then the last thing that we can do is come over here in the image size and change from 1 to 1 to over here in our webhook to where we have the aspect ratio that we want to use, which is 16 by 9. And now if I actually close this off and I come and execute the step, and boom, as you can see, we successfully managed to send a request over to Nano Banana in order for it to start editing all of these images. Now what we have to do is to simply wait till a request is finished generating. So I will come over here and add in a wait node. Now I would advise you again to put this around 30 seconds. For this example, I will put it only in 1 because I want to show you what happens when it is not yet done generating. And now what we have to do is to simply get back our generation in our N8N interface. So I will come over here and select HTTP request, then come back over to Key API, simply scroll all the way up to the top and change the API input from create a task to query a task, since we want to get our task back in our N8N interface. And as you can see, we have a CURL over here, so all we have to do is to come over here and copy it, and then come back over to N8N, click on import CURL, simply paste in the snippet of code we just copied and click on import, and this is going to populate the vast majority of the settings for us automatically. Now we will again come over here and authenticate ourselves. So select generic credential type, then header auth, and then come over here and select your key AI credentials. And then what we need to do is to execute the previous node. Come over here in the task ID, simply delete this and take the task ID that we have from the request that we sent. Simply drag and drop it over here. And we can also delete the header parameters since we don't actually need them. And now if I execute the step, you can see that this didn't generate, which means that we basically have to come over here and copy the exact same logic that we had before. So I will come over here in the if node, simply paste it in over here, simply connect it, and then I will take this false branch and bring it back to the wait node, which means that this is going to keep looping till our image is done generating. And once it is done, all we have to do is to basically copy the exact same thing that we have over here. Since we can copy all these 4 nodes, simply paste them in, so we don't have to rebuild them from the start, and then simply connect them in the if node. Because this edit fields node is going to get our image URL, then we will download it, upload it over to Drive, and then send it back in our Lovable interface, where it is going to be displayed in this interface over here. Now if you want access to the JSON file for this full automation, so you don't have to build it from scratch, and you can simply download it, upload it over to N8N, and have it populate for you automatically, you can click the link in my description and come and join my free school community, where you will find the JSON for this along with all the automations that I have built in my channel. So definitely make sure you come and join us. And now it's time that I actually show you how I would go about selling an automation like this for thousands of dollars. Now the first thing that we have to do is to find out which person would actually need to use this automation, which is either going to be graphic designers, so they can significantly reduce the workload, or it can even be the people that hire the graphic designers, which is usually going to be business owners and usually marketing agencies, since they really do need a lot of graphic designers. So let's say for this example we want to target marketing agencies. What I would personally do is go over to an app like Apollo.io, which is a massive lead database, where as you can see it has millions of leads. And then I would come over here and search for companies and search for marketing in order for me to find different marketing agencies. And as you can see, we have found 180,000 marketing agencies, which if I'm gonna be honest, are definitely more than enough. And then what I would do is I would come over here and use some of Apollo's filters. Specifically, I would filter for the location, and I will only select United States, since that is the best market to be at, since people have the most amount of money to spend on. Then I will also filter from employee size, and I will select anywhere from 1 to 200 employees, since if you go more than that, these companies tend to require significantly more social proof, which I will assume you don't really have right now. So that's why we target smaller companies. And then I will simply come over here and export these Apollo leads. And I would go over in a platform like Instantly and set up a cold email campaign. Specifically, I would come over here, click on add new, I would name my campaign, and then I would come over here in the lead section, upload the list I just downloaded from Apollo. Then I would write some email sequences and I would set this campaign live. So then Instantly would go and reach out from my email addresses to all these people, basically pitching them this app. Now I know this might seem a little intimidating since these are a lot of steps, but don't worry, because I have created a full cold email course inside my paid school community where I show you how to do exactly that. From finding the leads to how you can set up the campaign, along with access to email templates that include very high performing email copy, then how to message these people in email to get them to hop in a discovery call with you, then how to close them in the discovery call, how to onboard them, and then finally how to deliver the work. And that's just one of the courses that I have inside my paid school community, because I also show you how to do exactly the same thing by using Upwork, and also how to build an audience on YouTube and on Instagram and sell your automations to them. And just to show you that this actually works, I very recently closed a $10,000 client, and that client actually found me from my YouTube channel. And I'm saying that to show you that these methods actually work. And specifically, building an audience on YouTube and on Instagram are by far the highest leverage methods, since you're not the one that's chasing the clients are coming to you and asking you to build them your automations. And just to make it easier for you, I package all of these 4 courses into a 100-day roadmap in which I tell you exactly what you need to do every day in order for you to land your first high-paying AI and automation customer. And if you follow this program and you don't manage to do that, I will actually give you all of your money back guarantee. And I'm doing that because I'm certain that if you actually do follow this 100-day roadmap, it's almost impossible not to land your first high-paying AI and automation customer. Plus, if you join my paid school community, you will get access to all the exclusive N8N builds that I have inside it, and also the Build a $1 million SaaS series, which I document the process of me building my own AI SaaS exclusively inside this community. So if you want access to all of this content, along with a community of more than 150 members that are very serious about AI and are interested in making money with it, make sure you click the link in the description and you come and join my paid school community, to where you can get immediate access to me and to all the 150 members, so you can also create friendships with people that have similar interests and goals to you. So if that sounds interesting, again, click the link in the description and come and check it out. But also, YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy this video, in which I build a short generator app using this Lovable N8N. So make sure you go and watch that next, and I will see you over there.